I don't suppose that if I said I'm going to turn around, face the ark, and count to 10, will magically everybody move forward? Yeah. Alan will move forward. He'll jump up a row, he said. We are a little light today, I noticed, because there are around our area and around the country thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of people marching right now. Now, they're marching a little prematurely because Michigan's not going to win until this evening. But then there'll be hundreds of thousands of people marching in celebration. Go Blue. I hear a chorus of amens, right? We finally get amens to that. But this morning there are thousands, tens of thousands of people perhaps marching against gun violence. And this is not just any march against gun violence. Of course, by and large, this is a children's march against gun violence. We know earlier, I think it was a couple weeks ago now already, many schools experienced children walking out of school. And this morning now in our own area in D.C., around the country, thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of people, children and parents, are marching against gun violence. Now, left, right, it doesn't matter. We all agree that the current state of violence in schools is unacceptable. But how we get to a reasonable solution, still seems to remain out of our reach. What we can possibly do to curb the violence, God willing, even stop the violence in our schools, we have not yet come up with a good solution. And so I was thinking about the march this morning that was happening, and I'm very proud that Congregation Shaarey Zedek, that we sent Rabbi Dahlin down to Detroit today. He is marching on behalf of Shaarey Zedek, and he's rallying a group of our members and other like-minded community members together. They're doing Kiddush and Motzi downtown. They're celebrating Shabbos together, and then they're going to march. Nothing wrong with marching. They're going to march against gun violence. And they're going to speak out, and they're going to stand up, and they're going to say, enough is enough. What can we do? How can we find a reasonable solution to protect our kids? Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want. Left, right, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. We want a way to protect our kids. It's for the kinder. And I was thinking about that as we now anticipate Passover. In just a week's time, we're going to be gathering again to celebrate Pesach. A week from now, the first night Seder will be behind us. We'll be anticipating the second night Seder. We'll be celebrating not just Shabbat next week, but Shabbat and Yom Tov coinciding as we begin this Zman Cherutenu, the season of our freedom, and the festival of Passover. We know in our Seder that the children play an important role. And we know today in 2018 that the children play an important role as well. And so it was that yesterday I actually Googled the question. Here we've got thousands of children marching along with their parents because the kids can't drive themselves. We've got thousands of kids marching, so I Googled, in the omniscient Rabbi Google, when do we listen to our kids? When do we listen to our kids? Want to guess what answer Google pretty much agreed with? Always. You should always listen to your children. That's what Google says. You should always listen to your children when they speak. You should give them every ounce of your attention. You should have both ears open. You should really give heed to what the children have to say. And with Passover around the corner, I thought, my, how far we've come. Give heed to what the children have to say. We need to listen to them. What happened to asking our kids to listen to us? What happened to saying the children should start listening to parents? And so it is that we turn in our Haggadah, and I know you don't have one in front of you yet, but I want to tell you that I actually pulled the real Haggadah out. There are lots of different Haggadot out there, but I actually took out the Haggadah that Moses himself wrote. It's called the Maxwell House Haggadah. It's the authentic one. And we know that the role kids play in the Seder, right? We ask the children to ask how many questions? Yeah, it's a trick question. There's only one question in there, really. with 4 versions to prove that that question is right. What is the one question that we have children ask? Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halelot. How is this night different from all other nights? There are really no question marks at the end of the other ones. It's one question with 4 examples of how this night is different from all other nights. And why do we need the children to ask the question? Because the Torah obligates parents. The Torah obligates parents to teach their children about what God did for us thousands of years ago. The Torah requires parents to teach their children. So in order to allow us to fulfill the mitzvah of teaching our children, the rabbis in their brilliance built into the Seder, wrote into the Haggadah one question to spur us to begin answering, and thus allowing us to fulfill the mitzvah, allowing us parents to fulfill the mitzvah of teaching our children. That's one role that the kids play in our Seder, and everything else, the afikomen, the games, you name it, is meant to keep the kids awake so that we, adults, can fulfill our mitzvah of telling them. There's a little bit more we read about children in our Seder, and here you may have heard it before. Keneged arba'a banim dibra Torah, echad chacham ve'echad rasha ve'echad tam ve'echad she'eno yodea lishol. The law speaks distinctly of 4 different kinds of children. Sons. We'll go with children. The wise, the wicked, the simple, and the one who does not know how to inquire. What does the wise child ask, the Haggadah says? What are these testimonies, statutes, and judgments that the eternal our God has commanded to you? You will respond by instructing the child in the laws of the Passover, teaching that after the Paschal lamb is eaten, there is to be no dessert. What does the wise one ask? What does the wise child ask according to our Haggadah? Tell me, Mom and Dad, how to do this right. I want to do it your way. I want to do it the right way. I want to do it the traditional way. Tell me exactly how I'm going to do it, because that's how I want to do it. No, I'm sure that all of you at your Seder have lots of children who are just like that. Right? Tell me exactly the right way, Mom and Dad, because I want to fulfill every mitzvah, every halacha exactly as it's given. I know based on the smiles, these are most of our children. Right? The chachamim, the wise ones. There are perhaps, at other people's Seders, not ours, another kind of child. What does the wicked child ask? What does this service mean for you? By the word you, it's clear the questioning child is not self-inclusive and so has withdrawn from the community. It is therefore proper to respond forcefully. This is done because of what the Eternal did for me when I went out of Egypt. For me and not for you. For me. How are we supposed to respond to the Rasha, to the wicked child who says, "No, I know. What did God do for you?" We talk about what God did for me. We say, God's not doing nothing for you. Then we come to the simple child. Mazot, the simple child asks. How do you respond? With a mighty hand did the Eternal bring us out of Egypt, from the house of slavery. And then you have the last one, the one who doesn't even know how to ask the question. And this says, how do you respond to the child who doesn't even know how to ask the question? And you shall relate to your child on that day, this is done because of what the Eternal did for me when I went out of Egypt. Now our rabbis look at these 4 children and they say we actually have 2 groups of 2. You have the wise one who asks, what are the laws? How do I do this right? And then you have the simple one. And we presume that eventually he'll become the wise child, so we give him the big story, which is God brought us out of the land of Egypt, hoping a few years from now he'll become the wise one to say, okay, now that I accept that God brought us out, how do I serve God? What are the rules? What are the laws? The other group of 2, the wicked one and the one who doesn't even know how to ask. Interestingly enough, we answer them exactly the same way. We were supposed to break their teeth, it says. We're supposed to whack them over the head so hard with our answer that it might shake them into reasonable Jewish practice. They're starting to remove themselves from this experience. And we're supposed to get hard and give them wazettes to really bring them back into the fold. Now, of course, the Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson gave another teaching. He says there's a fifth child. Because those first four we mentioned, the wise, the wicked, the simple, the one who doesn't even know how to ask, they're at the table. At least they're sitting around the table. The Rebbe talks of a fifth child who's not even at the table. And how do we address them? And I thought if we're writing a Haggadah today, in 2018, if we were writing a Haggadah today, we would not talk about the wise, the wicked, the simple, and the one who doesn't know how to ask. We would never, God forbid, say to our children when they challenge us about a piece of our Jewish practice, "Nu, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you doing it right?" We would never say that. Today in 2018, our Haggadah would be, what do you feel, child? What do you like? How would you like me to respond, child? What can I do to keep you more interested, child? Because it's about you. What can I do for you? Things have changed in the last couple thousand years. Nevertheless, here we are in 2018. We have this strange relationship between parents and children. Because we know for the better part of human history, we expected children to listen to their parents, and if they didn't listen, they were Risha'im. They were evil, they were wicked. And if they did listen, they were Chachamim, they were wise. They were the right ones. But here we are today in a very different age, and we have parents and children interacting and not knowing how to respond one to the other. Should I, as a parent, always listen to my child? Should my child always expect that I'm going to do whatever he or she wants? In a lot of ways, that's where we are today. And so I was thinking, in light of the marching going on this morning, what advice could I possibly give to my children about this idea of marching? What could I tell them about standing up and protesting in the way they did, not when I was younger, but when my parents were younger? My parents know about marching. Baby boomers know about marching. They also know about funny clothes and weird hairstyles and great music. They know about women's lib. And frankly, they know about how to bring relationships to an end because the baby boomers brought divorce upon us. And the baby boomers have really led to the collapse of religion in so many ways. The baby boomers have some wisdom that they can share. But in the Haggadah that we come to this Friday night and Saturday night, what role do grandparents play in the Haggadah? What mitzvahs do the Torah place on grandparents? Nothing. Nothing. And so it is, I came across a learning that said, grandparents don't have a formal role in the Seder, but they are really the prologue and the epilogue of the entire story. Because how does the story of our Exodus begin? It begins with Jacob pulling close his grandchildren, Ephraim and Manasseh, and blessing them. May you remain Jewish in a foreign land. And the story of our Exodus ends with Moshe, Rabbeinu, with Moses as a grandparent. Because remember, all the people of his generation died out except for Moses. Moses is a grandparent preparing his grandchildren to enter the promised land. Grandparents have an incredible role in the midst of Judaism in general and the Seder in particular. But there are no words prescribed. It's up to you. What role are you going to play with the wise children and with the wicked ones? What role are you going to play with the one who's not even sitting at the table? There's no formula. But you have the wisdom and you have the experience. You have an important role to play. The story is told of Rabbi Menachem Mendel Levitebsk, who was this great Hasidic rabbi, and he led this group of people to Tiberias in the land of Israel. And sure enough, on one particular day, someone really malicious, went up to the Mount of Olives and blew the shofar in the way we're supposed to do to herald in the Mashiach, the Messiah. And sure enough, everybody got excited. Everyone was stirred up. The Messiah is coming. The Messiah is coming. Someone blew the shofar on the Mount of Olives. People stopped working. People started going into the streets to party. And so the Chassidim went to Rabbi Menachem Mendel Levitipsk, who was then in Tiberias, and said, Rabbi, Rabbi, the Messiah is on his way. Shouldn't we get ourselves ready? The rabbi opened the shutters of his house, stuck his head out the window. I smell nothing new in the air, he said to his followers. There's nothing new under the sun. Go back to work. At Seder time, we're called upon to seek the wisdom of the generations, to seek the learning from those who came before us. Parents and children are at a tough point in history. In 2018, parents and children don't entirely know what to do with each other. And so this Passover, as we confront some truly great challenges facing our society today, the plagues of gun violence, the plagues of poverty, the plagues of interracial conflict, the plagues of people discriminating against gays and lesbians, the plagues of people around the world who have no safe haven to call home. What do we do? How can we go forward? We, the children and the parents, we're looking to you, the grandparents, and perhaps all the more so the great-grandparents, to begin to show the way. This Passover, let's not just ask children and parents. Let's look to our grandparents and our great-grandparents for your experience, for your wisdom, to tell us the story. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. And let us say together,